So I decided to train at home today, especially since I trained two of my workouts outside when it was crazy cold, and it's something that you should be careful about whenever you are exposing yourself to cold temperatures, especially for longer periods of time, because it can have some negative effects. But I am not so knowledgeable about this topic, especially not as Ivana Tumidalska, who has been working with this topic for quite a while, and I decided to invite her so that she would talk and speak about this topic. So tell us, what happens to our bodies or to us in general whenever we expose ourselves to cold temperatures or whenever we are outside in the cold for longer periods of time?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, in traditional Chinese medicine, we usually talk about the body's vital reserves as your internal store of energy. You can think of these reserves like a battery that powers all of your body's functions, like warmth, movement, digestion, immunity, fertility, and also even your mental clarity. In winter or cold weather, your body tries to protect and store this energy. When you expose yourself to cold, especially when you're not properly dressed or when you train too hard and sweat, your body has to spend extra energy just to keep warm and stay balanced. That energy comes directly from your reserves. Mm. In traditional Chinese medicine, long term exposure to cold, especially without proper protection, can deeply impact the body on several levels. Cold just doesn't just cause short-term discomfort, it can penetrate deeper into the body and lead to chronic imbalances. And this can result in, for example, stagnation of your energy and blood, and it can lead to chronic pain, tension, cold limbs, and increased risk of joint issues like arthritis, or weakening your kidney energy. And kidneys are especially vulnerable to cold. Long term exposure can deplete your yang energy, which is your body's internal warmth and vitality. And the results are like, for example, low back pain, fatigue, hormonal imbalance, frequent urination, lower libido and stress, or other disbalances like digestive disorders. For example, cold in the body weakens the spleen and stomach, so the organs responsible for digestion in traditional Chinese medicine. And this can lead to bloating, diarrhea, or loose stools, poor appetite, food stagnation, and so on. And also, it is very, very dangerous. I can say it like this, that cold uterus in women, especially when women are exposed to cold, especially during menstruation or postpartum, can cause menstrual cramps or irregular cycles or fertility difficulties, and also even endometriosis from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective. And in the end, we can say that cold can also affect our mind and spirit, leading to feelings of withdrawal, fear, or lack of motivation, especially if our young energy is low. We can at the end say that we shouldn't be afraid, or we shouldn't take the cold as a fear, but it's all about our preserving warmth, vitality, and harmony.
Alright, thank you so much for being here. I believe it was very helpful for each one of you. I will talk about it a bit more later on. So, as you've heard, it's not always ideal to train outside in the cold. And why I decided to have such a topic in general is that there has been this movement of being disciplined and doing the hard work, even if you don't really feel like it and stuff like that. But sometimes it's not always rational. Sometimes we do something like that just so that we feel better. But we mistake like the real hard work with the fake one. Which means that sometimes training outside in the cold is not always the hard work. Sometimes the hard work is to actually force yourself to stay inside and train inside in the warm and safety of your own room. Don't get fooled by the internet and always use your head, always use your own thoughts, your brain, and try to think rationally. Don't do anything stupid like you have trained as me 2 times in the cold outside and you decide to go for the 3rd time just because it's disciplined, it's hard work if you have to force yourself outside into the cold and train outside, even though it's cold. But that's not really true, because sometimes it's actually enjoyable for us to train in the cold because it gives us like the adrenaline, it makes us feel more alive. And so what's actually harder sometimes is to not get succumbed into those fake feelings of like doing the hard work and realize that what you actually don't want is to train inside. And that's what I was fighting with today, that it actually this time wasn't smart for me to train outside. And I at first thought that it would be disciplined, it would be like the hard work to go and train outside, but that's actually not the case. Since I have already trained 2 times in the cold, and you have heard what Ivana Tumidalska had to say about getting or being in the cold environment, especially for longer periods of time, or like many times throughout some kind of a period of time. And since we have learned information or something new about this topic, we now know that we can't always do something that's considered to be hard work because it's sometimes actually not. And that's what I wanted to leave you with from the discussion which I had with the guest. And now I want to go into the actual lesson which I wanted to mention in this video, and it's that chasing happiness is not always going to lead to happiness. And this lesson will mainly be intended for men, so if you are a man then listen closely. And it's that I have made the mistake many times that I should always chase happiness, I should always do something that makes me happy and stuff like that. But actually most of the time when I have tried doing something like that, it ended up with me being unhappy, because there isn't a guarantee that some kind of an action that in the past made you happy will make you happy again in the future. And what we should chase instead, or not really chase but go after, is actually not happiness but fulfillment. And that's why I mentioned it's for men, because it works different for women. And it's that what fulfills you, or what you do and afterwards you feel fulfilled, is actually what will eventually translate into happiness. Because for us men, we usually, if you are masculine, that is, you will most likely feel the most or the happiest that you have ever been when you have, or when you had a wonderful productive day, you have done the hard work, you have done the real hard work, not the one which I was talking about before, the real one, and you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone and you have just been productive and you had a day that a proper man should have. Afterwards you feel fulfilled because you have done what you set out for, you have done what you planned that you would do, and so you feel fulfilled for accomplishing all those goals. And usually, if not always, you will feel happiness. You will feel happy that you have accomplished all those tasks. And that's my theory. Like, instead of chasing happiness, try to do the actions that will make you fulfilled, because that will eventually translate into happiness. And actually, from my own experience, I felt happy right after I did something that actually was fulfilling. And so, in that case, something that you can actually practically do is to find or plan out a day or plan out activities which you know are productive and you know that you will feel fulfilled after doing them. For me, it could be reading a wonderful book for a while, getting new ideas, getting more information and stuff like that, editing a video, training or going for a run, spending time outside in the nature and stuff like that. And I know if I will do those things, and at the same time avoid doing the bad things, which could be watching useless videos, eating something that's not healthy, or eating something that's outside of my diet, then I know I won't be fulfilled. And so if you will plan out like what your actions are, what are the actions that will make you fulfilled, you specifically, then just try to accomplish as many of those tasks as you possibly can, and just see for yourself, experiment, try it for at least 1 or 2 days and see if it works for you the same way as it works for me. Just try to do those things that make you fulfilled and see if you will feel happy afterwards. And that's the lesson which I wanted to give you in this video. There wasn't much from my training because, as I mentioned, I didn't train outside and I don't really want to record in my room. And so I somewhat apologize for not having a proper session or not having it recorded. But that's also why I decided to make the wisdom or the information that I am sharing a bit different. Like, I invited a guest for a brief description, and I also talked about a lesson which I wanted to give you, because I think that it might be useful to you, because it's a lesson which I would have liked to hear in the past many years ago. It would have helped me tremendously, and I hope this video was useful as well as educational, maybe even inspiring in some way. And if you liked what I was talking about, you can check out my one and only product, which is linked in the description. There is also a link for a website of the guest of this video. You can check it out as well, and afterwards you can watch this video next.